Um, I think I'll start by telling you guys about how I formed my racial identity. When I was really little, like back in Colombia before I moved to the US, because I moved to the US when I was like around 8, I remember I don't think I thought too much of race because I think that Colombia is a country that is very diverse, so it's a little hard to like pinpoint someone's race and be able to say this person's this person's that. So when I was really little, like I remember just I used to live mainly with my mom's family because my dad and her kind of like separated when I was really little, so I never really got to spend time with him, and he was in the military, and I never spent time with his family. My mom's family was predominantly like what we call white Hispanic. She was like a white Colombian, and pretty much everybody on her side of the family like has green eyes or blue eyes, or if they have brown eyes, they're usually like pale skin and or like really light hair. So by spending like so much time, not so much time, but practically living in a family that was like white Colombian, I never really like felt like I had a specific race because like I just remember that she would tell me that my dad was dark. Whenever I would ask her to describe him, she would say, oh yeah, he's dark and he's kind of like mixed between probably like black and like some type of like native descendants, and he's like darker, so I was like a mixture between them two. But I never like no one ever like told me this is your race because I kind of like came I was like a mixture of them too, so I never really like thought of me being like a certain race, like specifically like they were. So like living in my mom's family and in my mom's house and with her family, like I remember thinking like in my head that I was like, I don't know, I thought I was like somewhat white, but I knew that I was like different than them because I had darker hair and like darker eyes and darker skin color. So like I knew I wasn't like white, but in my head, like the way I kind of like view it in my mind as a kid, it was kind of like that. Like no one ever told me like this is your race, this is what you are. Like I always knew that I was like mixed, very mixed between different cultures, and I think that it was like for me it was okay because in Colombia that's like what the majority of the people are. We're kind of like everybody's like of a mixed race. Like nobody really knows. Like everybody just knows that you're from like a descendants of black and white and natives. So nobody really. I think it's a really like touchy subject in Colombia to talk about because every like we like similarly to when I watch Brazil, Racial Paradise, Colombia is kind of like that in a sense too. Like everybody, we kind of like pride ourselves in being of mixed culture and all that stuff. But I mean, I did know about white privilege kind of growing up because I saw how differently my family got treated compared to like people that were more that were like darker or like just people in color generally. And I remember like I kind of felt mad about it, and I didn't understand why someone that was just like lighter than me or of blonder hair would get like better treated. I thought that was really unfair because the majority of the country is very mixed and there's different races and all that stuff. And I remember seeing it on TV too. Like I remember seeing that on TV, like um people usually were whiter on TV, and I kind of like started to realize that it was more about like social class, like usually in Colombia and like in Brazil too. After watching Brazil, Race Paradise, like I just remember that people over there usually, it's kind of like a hierarchy of social class and race. Like the lighter you are, it probably means that you are like wealthier. And I always like, I don't know, I just never knew why that was. There was that white privilege, and even like in another country that's not the US, like the same struggles like apply to people of color. When I moved to the US, I moved to Florida, and Florida is like a huge melting pot of culture, so I never really like thought I was out of place or anything like that. It was it was a really nice place because so many different cultures, and there were so many things to learn about everybody, and I didn't really like. I think that people there were more understanding of like the that it was a very mixed country. Like you can definitely see the diversity over there of the U.S. But I remember like I never remember being kind of like, I don't think anybody was like completely racist against me or to me. So I never really experienced that in Florida. But when I moved to like Las Vegas and to Nevada, I kind of like, I was very like culturally shocked for the first time. It was a culture shock to me because I was used to in Florida going to schools that were very diverse. And when going to Vegas, like all I heard about was like, oh, that's a white school, that's a black school, that's a ratchet school because it's like full of Mexicans and black people. And I was like, I was really disappointed and really saddened that I moved to like a place like that because in Florida I wasn't used to that. And I felt like it was like a loss of identity almost. And I say that because people over there, like, they see your color of skin and you automatically like fit in like 3 categories. So you're either like black, Mexican, or white. Like, and I say Mexican because people over there don't really like, they don't say Hispanic. They usually say like, oh, if you look Hispanic, you're automatically Mexican to them. So it was really weird to me that people were so segregated and schools were so segregated, and the different like races kind of, or ethnicities kind of like hated each other or didn't really appreciate being with each other, with one another. So it was it was a culture shock to me because I wasn't used to that. I was always used to being with a lot of diversity in people, and it was, like I said before, it was really sad because I felt like I lost my identity because Colombians are like really proud of being Colombian, and I know that other people from other countries are really proud of being that, and you assimilate to the U.S. and you love the U.S. as well, but it's kind of like if someone like automatically like segregates you into a group that you have like nothing really to do with aside from like a language or like a skin color, then you kind of like feel lost almost. One last thing I do want to talk about is Nancy Leon's racial capitalism, and I want to talk about the diversity rationale versus the other rationales that there are to diversify campuses. And throughout like the reading and learning more about it from Jody and talking to him, I kind of like, I feel that it is wrong to just have that diversity rationale there because it's, I don't know, it hurts a little bit. It like makes me mad and sad that the only reason why some campuses want to diversify is because it's kind of like, oh, we can make money out of this certain groups, so like there's a benefit, and that if there wasn't that benefit right there, that monetary, like that value to them, then otherwise the schools would not be pushing to do it. So I think it's obviously very wrong to do that. Sum everything up, I just want to say thank you to Jody because it was a great class and I'm really glad I took it. I know that I did learn a lot from it. There are many things that I wasn't aware of, I think like the main thing was racial capitalism. I didn't really like think of affirmative action as a problem to other races. I thought that I kind of knew about the unhappiness, the dissatisfaction with it being some type of reverse racism, but I wasn't aware of schools justify the diversity rationale because it benefits them. I always thought that affirmative action was mainly just to kind of bring about social justice and kind of like a remedial thing, like as a remedy to like all the problems that we've had throughout American history, like and all that stuff. So I definitely think that I learned a lot from that throughout the readings and throughout like the whole class. I kind of learned that we're not all so like different and that everybody has their own struggles and you can't really judge a book by its cover. You have to really get to know a person, like just because diversity doesn't mean like different races, different cultures. This is like it really just means about getting to know someone for who they are, and really everybody comes from a different culture, and it's not necessarily a culture of language or a culture of race or ethnicity. It's more of like a culture of like their history, and that really getting to know people and understanding them and understanding their struggles and being in their shoes. That's really what diversity is about.